fight day, people. Canelo Alvarez versus Avni Yildirim for the WBC, WBA Super and Ring Magazine Super Middleweight World titles. Obviously the Unified World Championships. Sam Logue here for Green Blood Boxing. Guys, thanks very much for tuning into the video. Before I even get into anything, I want to ask you please to like, share, comment and subscribe straight away before we go anywhere else. It really helps me. And yeah, absolutely nothing else to say on that. It just helps me. Thank you very much for doing it. As I say, before we go anywhere else, please hit that subscribe button and like the video and interact with the video as well. So let's get into it. I want to talk a little bit today about Canelo versus Yildirim. Just go a little bit into the fight itself and then touch a little bit on Yildirim being the mandatory challenger for that title, which is the WBC Super Middleweight title. So I mean, yeah, like cracking on with it straight away, we have Canelo Alvarez, the widely regarded #1 pound for pound fighter in the world, making a very quick return to the ring. Only I think 8 or 9 weeks removed from his astounding beatdown. You know, like really destructive, kind of, not destructive, but just really one-sided defeat of Callum Smith, who was regarded as the number one fighter at super middleweight before he lost that fight to Canelo. So I mean, a really fast turnaround for Canelo. This is a mandatory challenge, which is why he's making such a quick turnaround. He wanted to get this out of the way apparently so he can go into a fight in May with Billy Joe Saunders. That's the fight that they have lined up. So I want to preview it slightly. I'm not going to get too much in depth with it. I'm not sure there is way too much to get into. I think the interesting thing, well, not interesting, but the thing that I just can't get out of my head is just how much of a mismatch this is. Like, I think if you only watch like like Eddie Hearn and the kind of the promoters and the kind of the people who are very invested in the promotion and the event itself, you know, you couldn't be blamed for believing that, you know, this is, you know, Yildirim, it's a good fight and Yildirim has a chance, etc, etc. But, you know, if I'm honest, guys, from my own knowledge, and if you look on Twitter or look at any of the knowledgeable boxing coaches and people in the boxing world, you know, there is one resounding opinion, which is that this is a serious mismatch of ability. Not just ability, it's a mismatch of experience, it's a mismatch of title experience, it's kind of a mismatch of absolutely every aspect of boxing and championship boxing that you can think of. Canelo is a little bit smaller physically, but that makes no difference really, because his IQ and his general skill level and technical ability and power just kind of it just makes up for any kind of slight size difference. Now Yildirim, he'd be a heavy guy and stuff, but as I say, he just lacks so much ability in comparison to Canelo. This really is a gross mismatch. I think that, I mean, we've seen, obviously, we know Yildirim from the World Boxing Super Series. If you're like me, you wouldn't have heard of him before then, but the first time I would have seen him was when he boxed Chris Eubank Jr. and he got absolutely flattened within 3 rounds. You know, it would be safe to presume that Yildirim has improved since then. He's also working with Joel Diaz, who's a very well-renowned trainer, coached a lot of world champions. Actually coached our very own Jamie Kavanagh as well at one stage. So, you know, works with a very good coach, etc. But, you know, what we've seen of Yildirim is that he's a come forward, aggressive kind of brawler type. He'd be kind of a typical Turkish type boxer from what we've seen. Not really too many not too much finesse about how he goes about his work. It's quite raw and rugged. A lot of hooks, comes forward, not a lot of feinting, not very sophisticated with the feet. And that's only really spells trouble against someone with the IQ, distance management, and just overall ability of Canelo. As I say, we saw Yildirim get cleaned out by Eubank Jr. in a kind of a firefight where Yildirim was kind of, getting caught square the whole time, just punching with Eubank, who was much quicker than him, just generally much sharper, like all around, much better punch variety. Kind of just younger and quicker, like almost like Eubank wouldn't be renowned for his boxing either, but just smarter, way quicker, and hand speed quicker, and also again just generally quicker. Eubank doesn't have the quickest feet in the world, but in against Yildirim he did look like a much superior boxer in every way. And obviously Eubank was having his way with Yildirim, just landing uppercuts and hooks, and just kind of moving away from him and just landing pretty much whenever he wanted. Yildirim obviously landed a few shots, but never really posed too much of a threat to Eubank. And then they were trading shots in the third round, and Eubank landed. I think he landed a couple of uppercuts, and then they were trading left hooks, and there was only going to be one winner there. The much faster, much younger Chris Eubank Jr. and absolutely flattened Yildirim. So I think what most people are thinking is, if Eubank did that to Yildirim about, what was it now, about 4 years ago, which is a long time, but you have to also consider that Yildirim hasn't even boxed. He hasn't boxed in 2 years, exactly 2 years. He fought for the WBC super middleweight title, the exact title that he's mandatory for. He fought against Anthony Durrell and lost on it was a technical technical split. What's the correct terminology for it? It was like a split decision technical stoppage, because it was Anthony Durrell was cut, but it was a split decision on the cards, and it was stopped in the 10th round, and Durrell got the nod. But that was the last time Yildirim boxed, 2 years ago, in a loss for the title. So going in against Canelo, I really just don't see I don't see any chance for him. It's a 2-horse race. He's a big, strong, powerful man. Anyone has a chance, in that kind of 2-horse race. Of course they do. But realistically, just because Canelo is who he is, and he's so focused, he doesn't really slip up. You just can't really see any way of Yildirim having success in this fight. I personally believe that this will be done within 3 rounds. I think that if it's not done within 3 rounds, it's because Canelo is purposely allowing it to go longer than 3 rounds. If Canelo goes out and looks to stop the fight as early as he can, the fight is finished in the first round for me. That's how much of a gulf in class and ability you're talking about here. I really do think he can go forward and land at will. He can draw Yildirim on, which is probably what he will do. He's such a super counter puncher. He's so quick. His hands are so quick. His judgment of distance is just phenomenal. His head movement, his upper body movement and head movement in the pocket as well. It's like a thing of beauty. It's so nice to watch. It's really, really phenomenal. He's regarded number 1 pound for pound for a reason, I really do think this will be done in 3. So I just see Canelo landing at will. And Yildirim only really knows one way to fight, as far as I can see, which is to come forward, kind of look to be aggressive, look to be rough. But I just think when you've got his movement is not sophisticated enough. He's gonna fall into punches. He's gonna walk into shots because he's not gonna. I don't believe he has good enough footwork and judgment to distance and just wariness of those aspects of the game, to especially when you join that with Canelo's ability and presence in the ring as well, you know, and IQ, his ability to lure you into the space and lure you into doing what he wants. I just don't see, you know, all that together. Just don't see how he has success without getting clattered essentially on the way in, or, you know, I really just don't see it. So for me, I'm picking Canelo in 3 rounds. I think he could do it in the first round, as I say, if he wants to. I think that he will have it done by the 3rd round, by the end of the 3rd round. But maybe 4, maybe 5. As I say, it's all going to depend on what Canelo wants to do. If he takes it easy, or if he goes in and just takes his opportunities early, which he will be able to do, in my opinion. A narrative that the promoters are trying to spin here is that, you know, maybe Canelo, he's only fought 8 weeks ago, maybe he didn't go straight back into camp, maybe he took 4 weeks off and not just 1 week off, and maybe, you know, maybe he's not fully prepared, or maybe he's not as well prepared as he could have been for like the likes of Callum Smith in his last fight. I think it's very, very obvious. It's just an obvious plea from the promoter, or not plea, but yeah, it's just a typical promoter narrative to try and make the fans think that this is more of an exciting fight, or more of an even fight in some respects than it is, you know. Basically trying to get you to believe that Yildirim does have a chance and that it is a good fight. I think it's a good fight because Yildirim will come forward and Canelo is Canelo and he's always good to watch. But it's not a good fight in the sense of, like, it won't be competitive. Not even remotely. Like, if Canelo can do what he did to Callum Smith, this fight is not even remotely competitive. Like, Callum Smith would take Avni Yildirim out also within a couple of rounds, in my opinion, and would do so at will as well. So I just see, as I say, I just see this being a complete whitewash, and Canelo doing whatever he wants when he wants, at whatever stage in the fight he wants to do it. So yeah, that's the kind of preview part. I do want to quickly talk about how Avni Yildirim has ended up as the mandatory for the WBC world title, on the back of a loss. However the loss came, you know, as irrespective of the form of the loss, he did lose. He was down on the cards in a split decision, and he lost. You know, I don't think that warrants a reinstatement of the mandatory position. I'm not sure if he was actually mandatory before that, but I'm not sure if that, as I say, I'm not sure if that really, in my opinion, warrants him being made mandatory just because he lost on a split decision that in a fight that was stopped because of a cut. You know, it's boxing, it happens. People get cut in like almost every time you watch a fight night or a card, or, you know, like someone gets cut because that's what happens. So yeah, it's one of those questions. It's quite puzzling. It's puzzling, like, how is Avni Yildirim mandatory for the WBC title? He hasn't even boxed in 2 years. As I say, he lost to Durrell in the last fight. Why has he been made? I mean, I don't know the answer. Maybe somebody who watches this knows. Why has he been made mandatory for the title? I think it's absolutely ridiculous, if I'm honest. He also, you have to wonder, like, who's he boxed? Like, how is he getting to number 1 in the WBC? Like, there's just so many better fighters. So we have to start questioning the WBC especially, but all of the governing bodies and how they do their rankings, who they sanction for ranking titles, etc., which allows them then to get ranked very highly by these governing bodies. You'll find a lot of it has to do with sanctioning fees, for the most part, you know, money. I think the WBC have a lot to answer for because they seem to be particularly concerned with commercialising their brand, You know, you see the belt is the shiny, pretty belt. Everyone has a WBC cap on. You know what I mean? They make a fucking belt for everything. There's a diamond belt. There's a Mayan belt. There's a... Jesus Christ. There's a belt for fucking every day of the week, like, you know? I mean, it really is... Like, I think they're starting to make a bit of a joke of it. Like, I mean, they made a belt for McGregor Mayweather. The money belt. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think at some stage you have to kind of go, is this good for boxing as a, you know, as an elite sport, as an elite not top level sport, but you know what I mean? Like, at the top end of the sport, this is a governing body. Is this good for the image of boxing and this complete commercialization of the sport? I think it's okay at some stages, or at some points it's fine, or to some degree it's okay, and the WBC can do what they want, but to some degree then, and at some point it becomes too much, you know what I mean, where it seems to all be about the money. Like, they break their own rules left, right and centre, you know what I mean. I don't know exactly what the rule book is with the WBC regarding mandatories and mandatory positions, but we've seen over and over again WBC champions, namely someone like Deontay Wilder, basically not having to fight a mandatory challenger for like 2 years plus. Like, how can that be that 2 years can go by and you don't have to fight a mandatory challenger? I just don't get it. It just doesn't make sense to me. They seem to really pick and choose who has to follow the rules, and oftentimes you can link it to the fighters who are good for their brand, who are good, who make them money. Wilder was a big name, heavyweight champion, good looking man, big, in shape, African American heavyweight champ. He's good for business, you know what I mean. He's very marketable, he's exciting, he's knocking everyone out. They want that guy to be the champion of their organisation, do you know what I mean? So they were super lenient with his mandatories. They allowed him to basically pick whoever he wanted. Like, he was fighting the likes of like Spilka and Johan Duhaupas and Eric Molina, and these guys, when they weren't ranked in the top 15. Like, there's no way they were ranked. I mean, and if they were ranked in the top 15 at the time, I don't have the list from bleeding whenever that was in front of me, but they had no business being ranked in the top 15 with the WBC. They weren't good enough. Now, some of them guys gave Wilder a tough night, especially Spilka, but all of those guys have gone on to show that they're not up to too much when it comes to that top level. You know, and they've been handpicked even by Anthony Joshua, you know, to kind of be, you know, handy night's works for title defences. They got their legitimacy off the back of fighting Wilder. So you can't blame Joshua in a way for taking those fights, but just you know, the WBC really do have a lot to answer for, and in this instance, as I say, I just don't see how someone of like how Avni Yildirim, the fighter, can be mandatory for this title. He lost the title. He lost in his challenge for the title, fair and square. Like, you know what I mean. I really do think that they just make it up as they go along. You know, as I say, I have no answers for this one, but it is something that bothers me in the sport. And then you get these kind of massive mismatches like this when you get that kind of disregard for the rules, and that might be a bit harsh, like, to say they're disregarding the rules, but just when you get these seemingly like made up mandatories, it's like when there's no logical pathway or process to become mandatory, it just seems like they just pick people and they just decide, like, oh, you can be mandatory. You know what I mean? That's the way it seems. Now, that probably is a bit exaggerated or a bit hyperbolic, but it does seem like that. They have a lot to answer for at WBC, because although they do good things when it comes to fighter safety and fighter safety for the most part, they do have a lot to answer for commercialization of their own brand and kind of bending the rules and kind of diluting the sport, you know, franchise, champion, all this kind of bullshit. Like, it just seems like they're taking it a bit far, you know. So yeah, I mean, I've kind of just digressed and ranted a little bit there, which has made this video probably way too long. But guys, I'm gonna finish it up there. As I say, Avni Yildirim will challenge Saul Canelo Alvarez tonight on DAZN. You can get DAZN. It's only like €2 per month at the moment if you get it, if you're in Ireland or in the UK, or £2 or €2 depending on where you are. So it's well worth it. Joseph Parker fought Junior Fa this morning. That was on DAZN. You can go back and watch that. There was a matchroom show in Italy last night. Daniele Scardina won the EU super middleweight title, like the second tier European title, in a decent fight as well, you know. So there's a lot of boxing on, and as I say, from about midnight, maybe 1 AM tonight, the Canelo card will be on, as I say, on DAZN. So tune into it, and thank you very much for tuning into the video, guys. It was a bit ranty, this one, but this is something that really annoys me. Tune in to the next video, which should be coming up soon. And check out some of the other videos that I have uploaded. I really appreciate the support, and again, make sure to like, share, comment and subscribe. Thanks guys. Peace.